A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thank you for tuning into another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Great to have you with us once again. We are in the midst of another huge week in the state of Virginia when it comes to Second Amendment sanctuary resolutions. There were 13 counties and communities across the Commonwealth on Monday evening that passed resolutions of their own. We have a couple of dozen more scheduled to vote or discuss the issue today and tomorrow in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we're going to be talking with the sheriff of Buckingham County, William Kidd. You can call him Billy. He does not get offended. Sheriff Kidd going to be joining us here in just a moment or two, talking about the vote in Buckingham County, where I was last night. The crowd of about 360 people or so jammed into the main meeting room. I believe the spillover room as well. Normally, when I go to one of these things, I kind of walk around the periphery. I don't sit down in the meeting room. I talk to folks who are outside and try to get as much information as I can. But given that this was a county where my home county, I wanted to speak, and so I didn't want to give up my seat in that crowded meeting room on Monday night. So I didn't get a chance to look at that overflow crowd in person, but I did talk with a gentleman listener and viewer to Cam and Company, Franz, who was there in Buckingham County, who was keeping track of how many folks were coming in the door, and he said best estimate that he could come up with 365 people, I think is what he said. So it was a great turnout. I was a little disappointed, honestly, that the agenda for the meeting actually had the Board of Supervisors voting on a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution before the public comment period. I have a feeling that that was done to try to shorten the time of the meeting, to allow folks to show up, express their support. Look, I'm here. Then the Board of Supervisors passes the resolution, and then, all right, you guys can go home and have your dinner now, and we're going to get back to our normal meeting. And I understand that point of view. However, given the fact that there were so many people there who showed up and who wanted to speak, I think it would have been good to allow that public comment period to happen before the vote was taken. Vote was unanimous, 6-0. I did stick around to speak afterwards and thank the supervisors. One other thing, though, that I do want to note from Buckingham County, and I mentioned this in a story that I posted at bearingarms.com earlier today. The chairman of the Board of Supervisors there in Buckingham County quoted from an op-ed by State Senator Matt Ferris, who is the local state senator representing this area. And in this op-ed, Ferris talked about how this is largely a symbolic resolution. That because of the Dillon rule in the state of Virginia, local governments cannot decide that they're not going to enforce or follow state law. That is true. Now, what the county didn't really talk about is the fact that law enforcement does have that ability, even under the Dillon rule, to decide what their enforcement priorities are going to be. And no, cajoling or haranguing by the state or its officers, like Governor Ralph Northam, can change the fact that law enforcement, be it prosecutor, be it county sheriff, be it police chief, that they do possess that ability to use discretion in terms of enforcing the law. And so we are now starting to see not just county board of supervisors, but county sheriffs and county attorneys, Commonwealth attorneys, say, listen, we're not going to enforce any unconstitutional gun control laws either. That is the case with my guest, Buckingham County Sheriff William Kidd, who joined me this morning to talk about last night's vote in Buckingham County, as well as what happens next. Take a look and a listen. Well, Sheriff, thank you so much for coming on the program today. It is good talking with you.
Just no problem, sir.
And Buckingham County last night, supervisors unanimously approving a Second Amendment sanctuary resolution. What's your thought?
I pretty much knew it was coming. As a game warden for 30 years here before I got elected sheriff, I dealt with a whole lot of these sportsmen out here, and some things that you don't fool with them is you don't hurt their dogs. and you don't take their guns away. They simply want to be left alone.
Absolutely. And how concerned are you about some of the things that we're hearing proposed in Richmond in the next session?
I'm very concerned. Number one, it's in no way do I want to go around trying to pick up people's guns. I got guns of my own. I've been fooling with them since I was 12. I've never hurt a soul. And professionally, I've been carrying them for 43 years, and I've never hurt a soul. But it sure was nice to know it was there when I needed it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things we heard from a woman last night at the supervisors meeting, an older woman. She said she's a widow. That her husband had passed away, and she took some self-defense courses from, I think, the Farm Bureau is what offered the course that she took, and she felt very safe in her home because she knew that she was able to protect herself. And she talked about how she had a plan to get out of her home if there was an intruder. But she also talked about having, I think she said she had a Glock and a shotgun that she was prepared to use to protect her life if she needed to. And clearly, as you say, I mean, there are a lot of residents in Buckingham County and really across the state of Virginia who are really concerned that their ability to protect themselves and the people that they love is going to be hindered by what's happening there in Richmond.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't have that many people working here. The state only allows so many deputies, and the county sometimes picks up extras and pays them, but we don't have the tax base here to afford to have a lot of deputies roaming around, and sometimes it takes 20, 25 minutes, or sometimes more, depending on what else is going on, for us to answer a call for service. And if somebody's trying to get in your home, you don't have time to wait 20 minutes.
Absolutely. One of the measures that we've seen proposed would actually make it a crime for a parent to allow their minor child under the age of 18 to have unsupervised access to a firearm. And I understand the intent behind this, but I also know that practically speaking, in Buckingham County and again, a lot of other rural counties around Virginia, you've got kids who've grown up hunting who maybe their parents may believe that they're safe and responsible, may know that they're safe and responsible to go hunt by themselves at age 16 on their property, or to, as you talk about in a rural area, to be able to leave their kids home, but allow them access to a firearm if God forbid somebody tries to break into their home and they have to use a firearm in self-defense. That would actually be a crime under one of these proposals.
Right. Well, I don't agree with it, so.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
I don't know how much influence I've got.
Well, one of the things that we've seen from, I think it was the Culpeper County Sheriff, he said, if need be, I'll deputize thousands of our residents here if that's what it takes. Have you been talking with other sheriffs around the state of Virginia about what's happening?
I've been in contact with one individual, especially, who was he wants our voice is heard, that we don't particularly care for what's going on, and I've joined with him. I don't know how many more he's got with him, but he's I think he's on the right track.
So do you think we'll be hearing more sheriffs speak up here as we get closer to the legislative session?
In my opinion, the ones that are closer to the major cities are not going to say a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the rural ones are going to speak out. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Have you thought about, if some of these laws go into effect, have you thought about taking similar steps or doing what you can to ensure that the Second Amendment rights of residents are still intact in Buckingham?
Well, to be honest with you, I've done that about 12 years ago when I first took office, and I've got a list of militia-type people that I can get to help me. Call it a posse, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're willing to do whatever I need them to do, so.
Well, that's good to hear. How do you get on that list, Sheriff?
Just volunteer.
All right. Well, sign me up.
All right, sir.
And I got to ask, last night, you've been to, I don't know how many county supervisors meeting in your time as sheriff, but from what I heard, there was a gentleman in the crowd who was doing his best to keep track of those who were showing up. But he said that there were, by his count, about 365 residents of Buckingham County who showed up last night. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No, I have not.
Yeah. And do you think that do you think that this will send a message to lawmakers in Richmond?
I think they're already kind of getting the message. It's akin to when they tried to outlaw alcohol, in my opinion.
Yeah,
it
didn't work all that well, did it? You know, that is a problem, and I think that's I think it's a very good historical analogy. Right. You know, again, when you have something that is popular and that a lot of people like, such as, you know, the ability to have a beer or your right to keep and bear arms, and all of a sudden that's taken from you, and the government says, well, we're going to step in and protect you from yourselves. You know, it's interesting because these are lawmakers in Richmond who are going to be putting these laws on the books, but it's up to law enforcement, like yourself and the Commonwealth's attorney in Buckingham County and you know, your counterparts around the state. Y'all are the ones who actually have to try to put some of these unworkable laws into effect and into practice.
Well, that's not on my priority list, sir.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. What would you like to see the legislators be doing instead of going after the rights of legal gun owners? You know, in Buckingham County, what are some of the big problems that you're dealing with right now? Because it sounds to me like legal gun owners aren't one of the big problems.
No, sir. They need to strengthen the mental health type laws, and you know, the best they've done so far is they make my officers have to stay with one for 8 hours or more while they decide whether or not he's got a problem. And more times than not, they say, well, there's nothing wrong with him, take him on back home. And some of these people have made statements like they want to hurt somebody, and that's one place we need to strengthen the laws.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and unfortunately, it sounds like with this red flag proposal, or the what was it, the substantial risk protection order, I think is what it was called when it was introduced last year. You know, you can have a judge based on just probable cause say, well, I think this person's a danger to themselves or others, and then issue an order telling you and your deputies to, you know, take the person's firearms, but you leave them their car keys, you leave them gasoline, you leave them matches, you leave them any knives they might have or any drugs they might have, and you don't actually treat that individual who may be in crisis. Instead, you're simply taking any legally owned guns away from them.
Right.
Do you have concerns about that quote unquote red flag proposal as well?
Yes, I do. It's finding you guilty before anything's done. No crime's been committed.
Yeah.
And I don't appreciate it.
Do you have you thought about what would happen if a judge in Buckingham County says, you know, Sheriff, you got to go and seize these guns from somebody over there in Buckingham or Arvonia?
I've thought about it and wondered how to proceed, but I don't have an answer right now.
Yeah.
And, I know I don't want to be the guy to go up there and say, hey, buddy, this is what happened. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody else does.
I think you're right.
Maybe the governor can lead the way.
If he wants them, he can go and get them.
I'm sorry, that's just the way I'm feeling about the thing.
Well, listen, you're not alone, Sheriff, honestly, and I do appreciate you speaking out and taking a stand here. I know that Buckingham County residents do as well, and you know, we're a little bit more than a month away from the start of the legislative session. I'd love to check back with you, and again, I'm really pleased that that you and other law enforcement officers are speaking out and you know, telling these lawmakers the issues that you have with these proposals, and you know, hopefully we can find a way to make this state a safer place that doesn't involve infringing on the rights of legal law-abiding gun owners.
I agree with you, sir.
Sheriff William Kidd, thank you so much, sir, for your time today. I appreciate it as always, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
You take care, sir.
Thank you, sir. Buckingham County, Virginia Sheriff William Kidd joins us here on Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. All right. Now, full disclosure, I do know Sheriff Kidd. He was actually one of the first folks I met when I moved to Buckingham County. He is a guy that I consider to be a friend of mine and a good man. And again, I'm really, really pleased that he could join us on the program today, and that he and other sheriffs are communicating with one another about what their response is going to be when these really bad bills become really bad laws. By the way, also worth noting that Governor Ralph Northam and incoming Senate Majority Leader Dick Saslaw in Virginia are now trying to tweak some of these gun control proposals to try to make them more palatable for gun owners and for law enforcement officers. I don't think it's going to work, honestly. So they're now saying that this so-called assault weapons ban is going to have a grandfather clause introduced, which it does not right now. Senate Bill 16 does not currently have a grandfather clause. The guns that you currently possess should not be allowed to possess them. But we're supposed to see this as some sort of sign of, largesse or compromise on the part of Governor Ralph Northam and the Senate Majority Leader, and saying, well, we're gonna change this law a little bit, and so as long as you register your firearms, you can continue to own them. That is not acceptable. This is not a compromise issue. If the state of Virginia is saying that the most commonly sold, and frankly the most commonly manufactured rifle in America today is going to be unavailable for Virginians to purchase, that, after this effective date, sales are no more. That is an infringement on the right to keep and bear arms. National Shooting Sports Foundation recently released figures saying that in 2017, modern sporting rifles made up 54% of rifles produced in the country. The Supreme Court has already said that arms that are in common use are protected under the Second Amendment. So Ralph Northam is proclaiming today, hey, listen, these sanctuary counties, they say they're not going to enforce any unconstitutional gun laws. Well, that's great, because we're not going to pass any unconstitutional gun laws. Based on what I've seen introduced, Governor, you absolutely are, and you will likely sign them. Any bill that would restrict the right of Virginians to keep and bear the most commonly produced rifle in America today is going to infringe on their rights. It is not going to regulate that right. It is going to infringe on that right. And then we've got the red flag bills. We've got proposals that would criminalize parents allowing their 17-year-old daughter to have access to a firearm while she's home alone for the purposes of self-defense. You've got a return of gun rationing laws. You've got a red flag bill that has not actually been introduced for the next session, but the last bill that was voted down in 2019 when Republicans controlled the legislature would have allowed for the seizure of firearms based on the incredibly low legal standard of probable cause that somebody poses a substantial risk to themselves or others. Now, what does that bill do to actually help the person who may be a substantial risk to themselves or others? Nothing. It does nothing. It takes their guns away, but it leaves their matches, leaves their car keys, leaves their gasoline, leaves their knives, leaves any drugs they might have in their home. Just takes any legally owned firearms from them. And then 2 weeks later, after the guns have been seized, then you get your day in court. And then, and only then, can you present your side of the story. Can you present evidence that you are not a danger to yourselves or others? This stands the law on its head. And as Sheriff Kidd mentioned, he is very concerned about having to enforce that law or have his deputies enforce that law. I mean, you heard the frustration in his voice. He doesn't want to do it. And it sounds like there are a lot of county sheriffs around the state who feel the same way. All right, let's get to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivism report, which comes from New Mexico and involves the show Live PD, which I cannot watch that show. And here's why. Because I don't watch a whole lot of TV, and when I watch that show, I get sucked into it, and then I end up watching for like hours at a time. Can't do it. I have lots of friends who watch it, who really like it. I've known folks who've been on the show, but man, it's just too much of a time sucker for me. So San Juan County, New Mexico. The most recent episode, KRQE says, of Live PD Wanted, San Juan County, New Mexico, made an appearance on the show. And the sheriff's office after a career criminal, guy named Michael Lopez. Deputy Chad Langley said, I'd say he's pretty easy to ID. He's got devil horns tattooed on his head, a teardrop on his face. and a little Pokemon on his left butt cheek. No, I made that last part up. Michael Lopez wanted for breaking and entering, criminal damage to property, as well as battery. Deputy Langley said he's got the history, too, like he did stab somebody in the chest a couple of months ago. Yeah. And as they're talking about this guy on the show, the commentators who basically like do play-by-play and color commentary of trying to capture these suspects, Sheriff Mark Lamb said this guy was released 24 hours later after stabbing somebody. He said this was a fourth-degree felony. He said, so the state of New Mexico has a law that allows these people to get released. Sheriff Shane Ferrari, who's the sheriff there in San Juan County, said it's good to be a part of this conversation and that even some of our legislatures are bringing this up. He said, we're letting repeat offenders and violent criminals take advantage of the system. And as Live PD Wanted, Sheriff Mark Lamb noted, he said, quote, this is a frustration that this sheriff's office and many sheriffs have across the state of New Mexico. You know, and he's absolutely right, by the way. We've talked with our friend Sheriff Tony Mason, Cibola County, New Mexico, about that catch and release problem that they have in the state. And it's not just endemic there in New Mexico. This is a problem across the country. And meanwhile, again, as violent criminals end up getting slaps on the wrist, get put in the revolving door of the criminal justice system, most lawmakers don't give a damn. They don't want to fix that problem. They may not even know how to fix that problem. But instead of addressing the real problem, they pursue legislation that sees you as the problem. Right? Oh, the problem isn't that we have these violent offenders who go on to commit, multiple felonies and never really suffer any consequences. No, the problem is that you, Mr. and Mrs. America, possess the right to keep and bear arms. And once we take that right away, once we turn it into a privilege, then these career criminals will somehow be thwarted from, stabbing somebody in the chest and then walking out of jail 24 hours later. All right, let's get to our armed citizen story of the day. You see the headline there, homeowner shoots through front door at would-be intruders. This from WPTA in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Lance Turner is a neighbor where this all happened. He said it's kind of scary because there was a gunshot about 200 yards from where I'm standing in the Lincoln Village neighborhood on the north side of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Resident told police that it was last Thursday afternoon, when there were a couple of guys singing Christmas carols as they knocked on the door of his home. But they weren't there to wish him Christmas greetings. No, they then tried to kick in the front door after nobody answered. The homeowner shot at the men who then took off. One neighbor said, I went to the window, the blinds were already open. I saw an individual sprinting in between two houses going to another subdivision. Lance Turner, another neighbor, said, I didn't think something like this would ever happen in my neighborhood. He said, seriously, we've only lived here about a year. He said, never really felt any problems with the neighborhood. It was always welcoming. Neighbors were fine. Well, the neighbors are fine. It's the criminals you got to worry about. The other neighbor, who asked not to be identified, said he talked with the homeowner after police left. He said they heard the doorbell ring. They heard what appeared to be pounding on the door, and then they saw the door being kicked in or attempted to be kicked in, and that's why this individual fired his weapon into the door or the door area. According to WPTA, some reports indicate a person showed up at a hospital shortly after the attempted break-in with a gunshot wound. Lance Turner said, quote, if something like that were to happen at my house, I probably would not be sleeping too well at night. Well, I got some bad news for you, Lance. This could absolutely happen at your house. It could happen at anybody's home. And you can have a video doorbell that, records who comes to your door. That's great. If you want to have one, be my guest. But unless you are able to protect and defend yourself and the people you love, when somebody does break through that door, bad things are going to happen. Again, unless you have the ability to protect your life. Glad that homeowner there in Fort Wayne, Indiana, was, in fact, able to protect himself. Now, on to our good deed of the day from Texas, where an East Texas woman saved a lady from a burning car, KLTV, with a story out of Longview, Texas. It was, again, Thursday. Crystal Cosby was at work in her office there in Longview, and she noticed a commotion outside. She said, I saw a man jump out of his truck and run over here. He was yelling. She said, so I ran out the door and there was a car on fire. Within seconds, this car is almost fully engulfed. But Cosby sees that somebody is inside the vehicle. She said a lady was stuck in the car. My instinct was to run over and to try to help her. She rushed out to the car to try to help. And then she said, I tried to get her out of the car. She was able to stand, but not able to walk. We had to get a wheelchair out of the truck before the car was engulfed in flames. She says the whole front of the car was on fire. After the tires started to pop, I realized it was dangerous, but at the moment it was just adrenaline. She was able to get that woman to safety. She said that she doesn't like hearing the word hero. She said, if it was just one of my family members in that position, I would hope that someone would help. I was just trying to do what anybody should do. Well, again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Crystal Cosby there in Longview, Texas. We thank you for your very good deed. That is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program today. Don't forget, you can subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, townhall.com's podcast page. You can also subscribe at Town Hall Media on YouTube. You can also, as long as I'm giving you recommendations, you can become a VIP member of Bearing Arms, get exclusive content and commentary. And I want to thank all the listeners and viewers I saw last night out of Buckingham County, Virginia. I'm going to be going to a couple of other Second Amendment Sanctuary meetings this week in Virginia. Look forward to the reporting there on BearingArms.com and right here on Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you here soon with more Bearing Arms Cam and Company.